Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am gonna do this little episode a little late at night here, but just wanted to get another one out here. And as we're back here to discussing a little bit more about Gamefan magazine. So we are here at Volume 1, Issue 2. So right off the bat, in the start, we here on the cover we have Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So this is the December 1992 issue, going for $3.95. But yeah, looks like so Sonic the Hedgehog 2 made the cover here. And so the first few issues of Game Fan, I think I mentioned previously, but I never did get those. It wasn't until I think like about the fourth issue or so that where I started getting. I think it was the first one that we bought. So I'm actually not too familiar with these. I think in the at some point in the past I've skimmed through it, um, but that's about it though. So let's dive in here. So yeah, so Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was kind of a big deal, and let's see. Oh, it looks like we got a little advertisement here for John Madden Football 93. This was pretty exciting here because I want to say I think this is where is this the one where they started having like the player names? Um Maybe not. Had some of the all-time greatest teams from back in the day, but not quite sure if this is the one where they started getting like the player names in it. But it was kind of cool though, right? That we were actually having the actual teams because I think in the first one it was just like San Francisco or Denver, right? But it didn't actually say like 49ers or the Broncos and all. So slowly we were getting into it where they were starting to get the license for, the not only for football, but some of the other sports games. So that was kind of cool, that, some of your favorite teams were being represented. Let's see. So here's a table of contents. So we have it's again, they're still trying to find their footing as far as their layout and all goes. So it's pretty basic right now. But let's go over the editorial zone. So now Dave Halverson has signed off on it there at the bottom instead of before he was eStorm. So I saw a funny video just actually during this week about more about GameFan and Dave Halverson, and kind of seems like, I mean, I always got this impression even back then. And then as I started watching some more things on this magazine and its original creator, but he definitely seems like he was a bit of a shady person. So just it sounds like there were just a lot of wild antics that happened during these days here at GameFan. Again, if there's a really solid YouTube series from the guy's name is I think called The Cellar YouTube channel, and just really well put together. And he has some interviews there from former staff also. So anyway, like I said, it's a lot of fun watching those videos and just all the um, craziness that would happen here apparently at GameFans with their review staff and all. But let's get into the editorial zone here. So let's see. So he's saying, so welcome to issue number 2. We are pleased to announce that GameFan has been picked up for national distribution after just one issue. You'll now find us in between the other mags throughout the U.S. Will be the one with the brilliant cover. Inside, you'll find the improvements you asked for in your cards and letters, like bigger screenshots, easier readability, and more of other stuff. GameFan's incredible industry section. Check out Chun-Li this month. Grr. We also we're also hard at work answering your questions. The postmaster will be ready to go in issue 3. Please continue to write in your questions and suggestions. You have a lot to say, and we're here to make sure your message gets out. Okay, enough about us. It's time to talk about you and what you'll be playing in the near and not so near future. Hitting stores now is a surprising Sega City, which is proving to be better than anyone ever dreamed, as the first round of games are loaded with tricks like arcade quality hardware scaling, while Sega grabs, and movie quality full motion videos. But alas, do you think the boys at Nintendo will stand idly by while Sega grabs a checkered flag? Oh no. In recent press release, they announced that that together with Sony, Nintendo will be launching their CD-ROM, which will utilize the advanced CD-ROM XA format. And until then, we'll be enjoying the new FX chip, which speeds up the Super NES considerably and allows sprites to scale independently. And then there's EA, Atari, TTI, and SNK, who all have plans of their own for 93. Yikes. We might be working overtime to afford it, but we're looking at some serious hardware. My only hope is that it stops here so that we can make our choices and settle in with one format for a while. By the time programmers learn one system, someone throws a new book at them. Oh well, stay tuned. We'll be bringing you the latest blow by blow each month in Gamefan. We're on it. Sorry, some of the like background and all sort of throws me off as far as when I'm trying to read that there. But it's funny. So this editor here, Greg Off, is the one that I saw an interview of him, and he gave kind of his take on some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes with this magazine. So it's funny, definitely worth a watch. But here's the top 10. Let's see. So top 10. Let's see. Welcome to the Game Fans Top 10 and Most Wanted section. Here are the results based on your cards and letters. Keep them coming because each time you write in, see instructions below, your name will go in a monthly drawing to win one of the goodies at the bottom of the page. So make your picks and send them in. Okay, so I think looks like this is going off of like not top 10 like selling games of all time. I think just top 10 like from what people were writing in. So number 1 was Soul Blazer on the Super Nintendo. Number 2 was Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo. And then number 3 was World Heroes on the Neo Geo. Number 4 was Montana Football 3 on the Genesis. Number 5 was Axelay on the Super Nintendo. Number 6 was Super Double Dragon on the Super Nintendo. Number 7 was Aliens on the Genesis. I believe maybe they mean Alien 3. Number 8 was Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo, I'm assuming. And then number 9 is NCAA basketball on the Super Nintendo. And number 10 is NHLPA hockey on the Genesis. But the most wanted was Sonic 2. Yeah, Sonic 2 was definitely, it was really highly anticipated. What was it? Sonic Tuesday, I believe it was called. And then number 2 was Super Star Wars. And then going down the line, so Streets of Rage 3, Cybernator, Art of Fighting, Batman Return CD is what I think they mean there. Turtles in Time. Oh no, that would have been Turtles Hyperstone Heist because that's on the Genesis. And then Sonic CD, Shining Force, and Super Battletoads on. And so here is their review section. So let's see. So it looks like for Game of the Month, so Skid, who was, from my understanding, E-Storm, who was also Dave Halverson. But this month, my pick as the game most likely to make you fake sick is Sunset Riders. Since Sonic is a given this month, I'll take Sunset Riders. I think I played it about a zillion times. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, but that's just the way I call it. Let's see. Keep in mind, I like unique games and seldom follow the pack. Brody I really had a tough time trying to decide what my favorite game of the month was. Sonic 2 was my first choice, but I couldn't stop thinking about how fun I had with Cybernator. That's a cool Super Nintendo game. Since Bonehead over there went with Sega, I'll stick with Super Nintendo and I'll take Cybernator as my choice for the game of the month. So, and again, right, it was kind of one of the things that they sort of prided themselves on was to be different from everyone else, which is cool. I can appreciate that. But it was funny because sometimes certain games just kind of seem like, that you would expect more coverage from. They didn't quite get that much. But they went with Sunset Riders on the Genesis, which was fun. It was an okay game. I remember I was kind of excited about that game because it was, if I recall, the first game from Konami that came out on the Genesis that was actually developed by Konami. And so I just remember thinking that was a cool thing because it was like, oh, what else is set to come, right? So that was kind of exciting. But here they had the Super Nintendo actually. So they have Cybernator. So again, yeah, that was a pretty cool game. I remember playing that. Let's see, Equinox. This is a fun game too. Also, it's like kind of like a puzzle RPG, and I do recall playing this one here. Chuck Rock. I never did play that one. Super Valleys 4. I've messed around a little bit with it. Not too thrilled by it. Never played those two. But then Sunset Riders, they really liked it. I thought it was okay. Like I said, it's a fun game. I was just more excited of it now because it was a Konami game on the Genesis, along with the Hyperstone Heights also. Now the Hyperstone Heist, it's um for me, it's not quite this the like Turtles in Time. It's actually kind of a, for me personally, I think it's kind of a scaled down version of Turtles in Time, but it's still fun though. And I was happy to have it on the Sega Genesis. So, a Turtles get beat 'em up game. So it was pretty cool for that. But let's see. But Sonic 2, here we go. So this is kind of the big one here. And so, so see again, right? They're kind of going against the grain here because I mean, Sonic 2 got a 98 and 99. It got better scores than the games that they picked the game of the month on. But, again, that's just kind of how weird this magazine was. But Sonic 2. So let's see. So Skid said, I've been drooling for this one ever since part one and Sega came through. Sonic 2 is amazing, faster, and nastier than ever, spinning through awesome new zones that will make your eyes bug out. Running so fast I thought my monitor would explode. The creativity and attention to detail is remarkable, and to finish with all the Chaos Emeralds is a worthy challenge for even the best players. I won't even mention the big surprise. You'll see. Which was Supersonic. And I've never been able to get Supersonic. I have a hard time with the bonus stages in Sonic 2. I'm not. They're one of my least favorite bonus stages. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of them. Maybe because I'm just not very good at them. But let's see. So Brody said the little blue dude with an attitude is back, and I knew he wouldn't let me down. With longer levels, new options, incredible detail, and a new friend, Sonic 2 just has so much to offer. Definitely the best thing since the last best thing. Now CD me. Let's see, anything else that kind of stands out. So we were getting some Sega CD stuff, like Time Gal. That's kind of like Dragon's Lair, sort of. It's like a lot of like quick time events. Let's see, but Forgotten Worlds on the Turbo CD. No scrolls. Uh-oh. Had no parallax scrolling. That's not good on the Sega CD one also. Soldier Blade. The TurboGrafx had a lot of great shooters. And Power Drift. There was a version of Power Drift on the TurboGrafx. I have checked that out, and it's okay. I mean, it's pretty choppy compared, obviously, to the arcade, but I guess for being a home port, I guess it's not too bad. Viewpoint. I remember they were really raving about this game. It was a shooter for the Neo Geo, and the graphics were pretty impressive. It's fun. I've played the game, and one thing that really stands out is the music. I think it's pretty good. It's kind of like techno-ish and all. Let's see. Okay, so here they have an interview with Wolf Team. So Wolf Team was coming out with a lot of games. A lot of them they had some kind of like full motion video games, well, like animated, like again that Time Gal game, Thunder, it was called Cobra Command, um, Road Blaster or Road Avenger. I think one of the other El Viento. So they had some games. Some of them didn't come out here in the United States, but some did. Let's see, and then we have our Hocus Pocus. Oh, a cheat there for Lightning Force. Yeah, that game is tough. So good though. I love Lightning Force. Such a great game. But Sega Sector. So Sunset Riders. So it's a decent game. This is another one too, also where the Super Nintendo just a lot closer to the arcade, and I think it's funner. But the Genesis port again wasn't that bad, and so yeah. So I almost thought that we didn't get the Hyperstone Heist for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles till later, but looks like they came out roughly around the same time. And yeah, I just remember just being really cool, right? And all that again, Sega was getting Konami games. So as a Sega fan, this was kind of a big deal. Even though again, both don't weren't quite as good as the Super Nintendo one. Here's for Sonic 2. I like Sonic. I mean, they're cool games, and I like Part 2. I think it's great. Aside from I'm just not a big fan of the bonus stages, but it was a big deal, especially Part 2. I mean, it was pretty hyped up. It's probably I would say probably the more hyped up Genesis game that I can recall. In terms of like the marketing behind it, the pipe behind it, and all, and the popularity of the character and all that. and which was cool. I mean, I'm glad that Sega found this mascot here, and I do like his games. Like I said, right? I don't know, I'm just not the biggest Sonic fan, but this one does have some pretty cool music. I particularly like this stage right here. It was called like the oil something stage. But yeah, and I love the way they did like the page layouts where they would show a good portion of the map of the game. I thought that was always kind of cool how they did that. The quality of the screenshots and all get better too, also as the issues go on. So it ends here. Let's see. Sonic 2 is everything they said and more. It makes you wonder why more games aren't this good. Who knows? 93 may be the year with the Sega City on the way and Sonic City in March. I'll tell you one thing, my faith in Sega is totally restored. All this was done right here. Bravo. Oh, yeah, by the way, has anyone else seen The Hidden Palace? Yeah, great game, though. I mean, Sonic 2 is great. Road Rash. I had fun with these games. We rented the first one, I think, a handful of times, and it was a pretty fun game. Let's see. The scaling also for being back then on a old Sega game was a little choppy, but it wasn't that bad, though. Fun games, though. Never did get into these WrestleMania games, although some of them I heard were pretty fun. Muhammad Ali, never played this, but I always wanted to check it out. I remember because supposedly um, the ring would kind of rotate and all, and it seemed like it was a pretty nifty effect. I think they talk about it here somewhere. Um, let's see. Scan any zoom in. Yeah, it seems like just the effect on the ring was pretty cool, but never did play it. Captain America and the Avengers. That's kind of a fun game. Time Gal, again, is one of those quick time event games, like in the style of Dragon's Lair. I like those games. I mean, they're, if you want to call them a game, but it was just cool. Just getting to control a cartoon almost. It really is just fun just to watch the animations and all play out. So not so much for like the gameplay experience, but I just thought they were fun just for like a quick playthrough. I need to beat that one though at some point. They're really hard though. Chicky Chicky Boys. I don't recall this one here. Some kind of an arcade port, apparently. Road Blaster. So this is one of those kind of quick time event games, also full motion video games from Wolf Team. Yeah, Wolf Team was just stepping it up on the Sega City in the early days. This game here, Robo Leste. So it's a shooter from Compile. So if you're familiar with like they had some 8-bit shooters, like I think even on the Master System, I think it was called, what was it, Power Strike, I think? And then on the Genesis, the Musha game. Well, this one was called Robo Leste, and it's pretty cool because you play kind of like a robotic mecha ninja almost, and you're like in ancient Japan, but it's like the technology had like almost like a steampunk style. I love the setting to it. I think it's really creative, and it's a fun top-down shooter. Again, very much plays a lot like Musha, but this one I really got into. Musha I never really got into too much. I've actually just recently tried to play it the other day, and it's fun and all. But this is the one that I really remember. We bought this one on the Sega CD. Has a great soundtrack. It's like a techno-ish sort of soundtrack, which kind of weird for the setting, but it's pretty well done though. And it doesn't really take too much advantage of the Sega CD's extra power. I mean, you get some slight scaling and rotation effects and all, and you get voice acting and for more or like the cinematics. But other than that, nothing too crazy. But it's a fun shooter though, so it's definitely worth checking out. Let's see. So previous, what were we showing here? So Wolf Team, they had their game. So there was a sequel to El Viento. So El Viento is a pretty cool Genesis game. It's like an action game where you control this character named Annette, and she shoots like kind of like a boomerang thing, and then she has like certain magic powers. So it's pretty fun. This was a sequel to it, which is sort of like a beat 'em up on the Sega CD. Well, no, sorry. So it only came out on the Mega CD because it didn't come out here in the States. And I was always kind of curious about it, but I think I read somewhere that the game is pretty horrible, which might have explained maybe why they didn't bring it out here. Never played it though, so I can't say for sure, but that's just something I heard. Let's see. So yeah, so again, so Konami was starting to bring out some games, and this is one that I ended up really liking. So this is just a preview to it here, but it was Tiny Toons. I think it was called like Buster's Adventure. So really fun game. Very much kind of like a Sonic clone, but one of the better ones for sure. And let's see, Mazine Saga, this one over here on the side. This game was pretty cool. Really enjoyed the animations to it. But it's kind of like a hack and slash, and then when you fight the boss, it's going almost like a one-on-one fighter. It's cool. It's creative. And then we got Final Fight CD. That was a really good version. And this game, I really enjoyed this game. So Mickey Mouse World of Illusion or something like that. So it says is the one game that may give Sonic 2 some heavy competition. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's definitely one of my favorite platformers on the Sega Genesis. And it's just fun, especially with 2-player, and also because you can play Mickey and Donald, and then also they have their own levels too as well. Like if I recall right, when you play 1-player, very colorful, very fun game. I love the music to it all, and definitely it's one of the games that really captured that Disney magic that they had back in the day. And yeah, just one of my more favorite platformers on the Sega Genesis. There's Castle of Illusion is the one that always seems to get it's probably the more recognized one, but I personally prefer this one here, the World of Illusion. I don't think it's available anywhere like for retail or like on any kind of like online subscription service. So you probably be just wanting to emulate it because again with the licensing, I'm sure that's they probably haven't one of the reasons maybe why they haven't been able to port it somewhere. But yeah, definitely if you get a chance, it's a really fun platformer. Let's see. So now we're going to the Super Nintendo. And speaking of Mickey, this is one game that I always did want to play, the Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. It just looked really cool. I love the graphics to it. Again, it kind of seems like it captured that Disney magic from back in the day. And Capcom was doing really good job too also with there was a lot of good Disney games from from really the 8-bit and 16-bit. There's a lot of great Disney games. And this is just another one. Capcom was part of that, right? There were several games that they would make that were just really good. But Cybernator, this is a cool game. It's kind of like a mech shooter, running gun, almost if I recall right. Um, Actually, I don't really remember too much how it plays. I just do remember renting it one time when our buddy of ours would bring a Super Nintendo over, and I do remember liking this game though. But honestly, now that I think about it, I don't really recall a whole lot about it. I should probably try to fire it up one of these days. But I think it was one of the more first Super Nintendo games though that I played. Space Mega Force, never did play that one. Dragon's Lair, where they try to make it into like a side-scrolling action game. And let's see. Oh, it looks like they thought it was decent. Equinox. So here was another game too that I do recall we rented. So I think maybe we did get this issue because I know these were like early Super Nintendo games that we played, and I think it was maybe based off of these reviews or previews. Yeah, because I remember we rented this one too, but this one we got because it seemed like it would be like another Landstalker, which I was a big fan of, and it's not quite that. I mean, it is in the sense of like the perspective and you're in dungeons and all, but it's definitely more, if I recall right, more of a leans more to the puzzle side of it, right, and all, and less action. But I do recall getting into this game. Graphics are really colorful on it too, also. And I always like this sort of isometric perspective. I know it can be kind of hard to control and sometimes it can be hard to pinpoint like where exactly you're at and all. But I don't know. I like the perspective though. Chuck Rock on the Super Nintendo. Seems kind of like a silly game, but yeah, came out first originally on the Genesis, I believe, and then so this must have been when they ported it over to the Super Nintendo. And then there was Roadrunner, Death Valley Rally. I'll see if I part 2000. Axel. Here's a shooter for the Super Nintendo that I haven't really played too much, but I've always seen really cool. Like I always thought the screenshots of this boss here looked really cool. I mean, that still looked pretty sick. I mean, I remember looking at these screenshots because that's all we had to go off on, right? I was like, oh man, look at the detail on that. Their hint line is still open. Sonic Blast Man, some kind of a beat 'em up. Never did play this one. Super Valleys 4. This one I played. Well, it's on the Nintendo Switch Online service for the Super Nintendo, and it's all right. I didn't. I like. I played. I played and beat the first Valleys game. Valleys, I think that's how you pronounce it. I played a little bit about Part 3. I don't really know what Part 2 is. Um, but Part 1 and 3 are they're pretty good for the Genesis. This one here for the Super Nintendo, like I said, I played it on the Nintendo Switch Online service when it came out, a couple of years ago or so on there, and it's pretty forgettable. It didn't really hold my interest. X Zone. Oh, this one. So this game here, it was eventually called Deadly Moves, I believe, and I played this on the Genesis, and I thought it was pretty cool because again, it was one of the first games that we rented back then. Actually, I think this one was the first game we rented because we started renting a lot of games because of this magazine, right? You know, my brother and I were going through the magazine. I was like, "Oh, that looks cool. That looks cool." And then we this around the same time, this place became available where we would be able to rent video games, and yeah, Power. This is the Super Nintendo version that they're showing here, and they're calling it here Power Athlete, but it was called Deadly Moves, and again, it was on the Sega Genesis. But yeah, it was a fun game, kind of basic fighting game for nowadays, but no, but I always thought the characters were kind of cool. Fatal Fury, so a port from the Neo Geo. The Super Nintendo one was decent. It got a decent port. And let's see, so some previews here of some upcoming Super Nintendo games. And so I remember looking at these screenshots here for like stuff like this for Final Fantasy. So this would have been Final Fantasy V. See, December 6th, Japanese gamers will line up to take place in the latest installment of Final Fantasy. This all new 16-made quest should be one of the best RPGs ever created. Full coverage coming soon. I remember looking at this, I was like, well, that looks cool, but oh, little did I know how much that series would consume my fandom. Let's see. Some other previews here. Batman Returns. Ogre Battle. I never did play that one. Battletoads, but those were some of the more standout games. Let's see. There's another advertisement for Turbo Duo. I think like they had last month. The championship joystick. So this was okay. So this would have been compatible with the Super Nintendo. So this would have been great. Like if you were really into Street Fighter 2. But then we got so here for the TurboGrafx 16 section called Turbo Tunes. So they're talking about Soldier Blade as from what I recall, is a pretty cool shooter. Never did play it though. Forgotten Worlds, I had almost forgot that it did come out on the Turbo CD, and yeah, apparently it wasn't that great of a port. Well, according to these guys, anyways. Yeah, so the Sega Genesis version didn't. It was missing some stages, but it was all things considered, it was a decent port. It was one of the games that we bought. I always loved this game, Forgotten Worlds, in the arcade. I loved the because in the arcade it had if I remember right, it had like a knob that you would twist and it would rotate your character around. And then I think you had a joystick also, and then a button, something like that. And so it had a unique control system in the arcade. And the Sega Genesis version was pretty comparable. And back then I used to play that one a lot. I played Forgotten World so much, and it was definitely one of my, even to this day, still one of my more favorite shooters. I just think it's very creative, very original. I wish they would do some kind of an update on this game, but yeah, but again, the Sega Genesis was missing some stuff, so looks like they were expecting the Turbo CD version, with the new power of, with the extra horsepower of the CD, it would be a pretty good port, but apparently that didn't seem to be the case. However, what we got here is missing even more. Most importantly, the two-player feature. Oh, geez. And lack of scrolling and flicker. That's not good. Shadow the Beast. This game always fascinated me back then. I played it a handful of times, but never really could get anywhere with it. But I just thought that the look of the game and all, I just thought was really creative. Here's Zong. So it looks like TurboGrafx mascot is getting some kind of changing up his like a genre. This is kind of like a shooter now, I believe. Graphics are really colorful though on it. Power Drift. So what do they say about it? Let's see. By far because I used to love Power Drift in the arcade. I thought it was just such an amazing looking arcade game. But let's see. By far the best driving game for the PC Engine. Power Drift is done incredibly well for a 4 meg game. 4 megs. Oh wow. With good voice, lots of color, and excellent playability. Power Drift's been out for a while and may be hard to find, but if you're one of the few who held on to your PC Engine or Turbo, it's a must-have. Check out Power Drift. In Japan only, though, I believe. Afterburner here on the PC Engine also. So Sega ported a lot of their games on the PC Engine, and from what I understand, the Sega Genesis wasn't too popular in Japan, but the PC Engine was. And so I think Sega was just putting a lot of their games on there just because, it was a really popular system. Oh, excuse me. But here's the Neo Geo section. So here they're talking about this Viewpoint game, which it is an excellent shooter. Very difficult, but it is a cool shooter. Kick-ass music too. Soccer Brawl, so kind of an arcade sports game looks like for the Neo Geo, which Neo Geo had a lot of them. Really good ones too. I didn't play this one, but I played what was it called? Sidekicks, I think. And that was a cool soccer game. World Heroes, so another Neo Geo fighting game, which looks like they were just trying to find something to stick that would surpass Street Fighter, but they never called. They never could though. Still looks cool though. Let's see, what is this? Black Hole. I remember seeing this game on the Sega CD, but the Graveyard, Decap Attack. So this would have been in 1992. Decap Attack would have just come out like in 1990. So they were only going like a couple years back. Oh no, this would have been in 1991. Okay, according to here, this excellent action platform came out in mid 1991. Never did play this one. There was like a bunch of games that were coming out for the Sega Genesis that were either developed or distributed or published by Sega, but with their Western studios. And there wasn't really a lot of them that really caught my interest. But it was like Decap Attack, there was Kid Chameleon, there was the Green Dog, and several others. And the only one that really kind of caught my interest was and it was a later release for on the Sega Genesis, but it was a Comic Zone. But yeah, I don't know. Just a lot of the Sega of America developed games or published games, and I don't know. Didn't really catch my interest. Oh look, we got Ultron as a villain and the Red Skull and Vision. Huh. Little did we know how much Marvel would consume pop culture for us in the years to come, right? With the whole MCU and all. Which I think the MCU, when starting from Iron Man up until Endgame, was amazing. It had some flops in there. I mean, we're not going to say flops, but some movies that weren't quite, all that. But just as a whole, the MCU from that stretch right there, just amazing. I did a kind of like a MCU marathon earlier this year, and just if you look at it almost like a big one movie, right? Just spread out over what 20 plus movies and all. Just I don't know. It's just one of the coolest things that's ever been done in cinema. Very cool. There's been some decent movies that came out on the MCU afterwards, but but mainly that stretch, right? So again, from the first Iron Man up until Endgame, that was something else. Let's see. It looks like another joystick. So Street Fighter 2 was popular, so it looks like there were just, I remember that, there was just a bunch of arcade sticks that were coming out. And then we get the football section here. So this is back in the day where there was more competition. It wasn't just EA Sports that was doing football games or sports games, right? There was a lot of different companies trying, their hand. Like Capcom had a football game here. At the end of the day, EA Sports, even back then, was the one that kind of ended up coming out on top. But there was a few other standout ones, though, right? That was that would be worth your time in some cases. But here's John Madden Football '93, and because eventually it came out to the Super Nintendo, but yeah, I mean these games were just more popular on the Genesis. They I never really played the Super Nintendo versions back then, but the Sega Genesis ones, they ran pretty smooth, all things considered for the technology back then and all. And it just was the place to be. I mean, the Sega this really was a sports machine. Joe Montana Sports Talk Football. So the commentary was pretty impressive. The technology that on how they were able to get commentary that would pretty much sync pretty well to what was going on screen. It was truly something else. The game itself was, I don't know, I didn't think too much of this one, mainly because I remember we rented this one and I don't know, I was a bit disappointed because I don't know, the players felt like almost like, I don't know, it's kind of weird to describe, kind of like paperweight, like they didn't seem to have like oomph to them or like substance to them. But some of the later Joe Montana games, football games, though, actually ended up being really good, though. Let's see, like, here's another football game. Who's this one by? Konami. So Konami had a football game, too. And then Pro Quarterback here. So let's see. So they thought, so the Genesis, John Madden, yeah. They gave the best football game, though, to Trade West Pro Quarterback. So this one here, huh? Okay, yeah, because see, I remember we rented this game, too. Maybe we did get this issue. There's just a lot of games here that... And so here's the other stuff section. So again, where they talk about rumors and such. Let's start off talking about the incredible US debut of the Sega CD. I like the Sega CD. I think there's a lot of amazing games on it. Well, maybe not a lot, but definitely has some really great stuff, though. And just unfortunate that its reputation is just that it has a bunch of full motion video games and nothing really much else to offer, which it's not true. It had a lot of full motion video games, but there was a lot of great stuff on it as well, too. Like Terminator, so they're talking about it here. Out of This World. There was a Heart of the Alien compilation that came out with, I believe it had Out of This World and then the Heart of the Alien, which was like a sequel to it. But yeah, I mean, the Sega CD eventually has some pretty good stuff. I was really excited about the Sega CD back then, and when we ended up getting it, and even again, we didn't have a huge library for it, but for the games that we did have, I was happy with it. I thought it was a great system. Pretty expensive. Again, I was kind of privileged that I had an older brother that was starting to work, and he was just spending a lot of money on games and hardware and all that. So I didn't know, that's how I got to experience a lot of things back then. But yeah, I was a fan of the Sega CD. So Looks like a. Okay, so this is what they were talking about, Chung Li. Okay, so they're talking about the Neo Geo CD-ROM. And so then they're also talking about here, both Nintendo and Sony of Japan have announced an agreement to manufacture and market their own CD systems. The Sony system will combine the Super NES with a CD-ROM drive similar to JVC's Wonder Mega. This new product will play both Super Nintendo cartridge games and CD-based software. No release date was available at press time. So this is in the December of 1992 issue. Well, if you know a thing or two about video games, right? We all know what ended up happening with that. But that's interesting, though, how this is where they were first talking about that. And just the schedule here. Advertisement for that Muhammad Ali game. RBI 4, games from Tengen. So Tengen was starting to do things on the Sega Genesis also. They were mainly known for doing Nintendo stuff, but Tengen had some stuff too also on the Genesis. And that's it for this issue. So still a bit of a short issue. Again, they get a little bit more beefier in the later issues. But yeah, because I remember playing this one. And then, what was the other ones that I said earlier? Cybernator. And also, what was the other one? Because, Equinox. That was another one too. And I want to say even Fatal Fury. And then also this Deadly Moves game. It just bringing back a lot of memories. What was the name of the place? I think it was called Video Directors. And the video store was a little kind of on the outskirts of the town that I used to live in. And at the time, I think an uncle of ours was, or my brother at the time too, was starting to learn how to drive. And so we would drive up there just to go rent some games. And I remember we were renting a lot of games. I got to play like a lot of Genesis games, and that's why I have so much fond memories of that system, was because of just how much games we were playing on the Sega Genesis. Because we bought some, right? I mean, one through I don't even know how anymore now, but somehow we would get some games. I think my parents maybe bought us a handful, and like I said, I was lucky that my brother was just starting to work and he was spending a lot of his money on video games. But we were playing a lot of games and we were renting a lot of games, and a lot of the games we were renting was off of a lot of recommendations and things that we were reading from, this magazine here from Gamefan. And so that's why for me, the Genesis and this magazine here, which is, that's why I wanted to talk about this magazine. It just holds so much good memories, so much nostalgia, that it's fun getting to revisit some of the stuff. I'm actually kind of excited to start talking about the issues that I have more memories of, right, and all. And, they were definitely key to really, really fleshing out my love of video games, love of the Sega Genesis at the time, but even the Super Nintendo and the Sega CD and all. But it was really mainly because of the Sega Genesis and this magazine's bias towards it, and all the games we were renting. That was just a lot of fun memories during that time stretch, which would have been from 1990. So let's see, 1990, because we had the Sega Genesis already. But again, it wasn't until when we started renting a lot of games, right? When we really got hardcore into gaming. So they would have been from around let's say around mid to late 1992 to the 96 when we finally got the Saturn. But that stretch right there, just really awesome stuff. And that's where I really got into this magazine here. And so it'll be fun kind of going through that as a little trip down memory lane. But that was fun. Hopefully you like that little look into this magazine here. Again, definitely check out some of the behind the scenes stuff that happened with this magazine. You'll get a kick out of it. It's pretty, it's almost like a rock band, doing a bunch of crazy stuff back in the day, sex, drugs, and rock and roll almost, but just in a nerdy kind of way. But either way, that's all I got for this one. Till the next.